Stellar debt. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent 17 years studying the night sky, searching for patterns in cosmic noise. On the morning of March 14, 2047, she discovered something that defied every pattern she'd ever known. The signal originated from beyond Neptune's orbit, moving inward at impossible speed. Not the gradual approach of an asteroid or comet, but deliberate acceleration and deceleration, proof of guidance, of intention. Within 6 hours, every major observatory on Earth had confirmed what Elena already knew. We were not alone, and whoever they were coming here. The ship emerged from the darkness 3 days later, visible to the naked eye as a structure that seemed to fold space around itself. It didn't land so much as materialize in low orbit, a crystalline architecture that reflected starlight in colors humanity had no names for. No weapons emerged from its surface, no demands echoed across radio frequencies. For 48 hours it simply waited, silent as a grave. Then came the message, broadcast simultaneously in every written language humanity had ever developed, including several we'd forgotten centuries ago. "Children of Earth," it began, "we are the architects. 10,000 cycles of your sun have passed since we came to this world and found you huddled in caves, frightened of the night. We gave you fire not stolen from gods, but kindled by our hands. We carved the first symbols into stone that would become your writing. We whispered into the dreams of your ancestors the principles that would become mathematics, agriculture, medicine. We built the foundation upon which your civilization stands." Elena read the message with trembling hands in the observatory's control room, surrounded by colleagues whose faces had gone pale. Outside, the world had stopped. Traffic lights blinked to empty streets. Smartphones glowed with the same message in billions of hands. Humanity held its breath. "We did not do this from benevolence. We did this as an investment. Every advanced civilization in the galactic community has been seeded by others before them. Every species that reaches for the stars carries a debt to those who lifted them from the mud. This is the ancient law, the stellar accord. Today, after 10,000 years of patience, we have returned to collect what is owed." The message ended with coordinates, a location in the Arctic Ocean, and a time, 72 hours from now. A delegation was to meet them there. No weapons, no military presence, just representatives who could speak for Earth. Panic didn't arrive all at once. It came in waves, building like a tsunami. Financial markets collapsed within minutes. Governments convened emergency sessions. Religious leaders proclaimed everything from the rapture to divine judgment. Scientists frantically analyzed the message, searching for deception or mistranslation. They found none. The linguistics were flawless, the historical references eerily accurate. In a small apartment in Mumbai, an antiquarian named Raj Malhotra stood before shelves crammed with ancient texts. His hands shook as he pulled down a Sanskrit manuscript he'd acquired years ago from a Tibetan monastery. Its pages spoke of sky teachers who came in vessels of light, beings who taught the first humans to count, to plant, to heal. He'd always assumed it was mythology. Now, staring at the crystalline ship on his television screen, he wasn't so certain. Across the world, similar discoveries emerged. Aboriginal Dreamtime stories spoke of star ancestors. Sumerian tablets described the Anunnaki descending from heaven. Mayan codices referenced sky lords who brought knowledge. Every culture had its version, every mythology its teachers from above. What humanity had dismissed as primitive superstition suddenly became historical documentation. The United Nations moved with unprecedented speed. Within 24 hours, they'd assemble the delegation, scientists, diplomats, philosophers, and, at the last minute, after fierce debate, a 16-year-old girl named Amara Chen. Amara wasn't special by any conventional measure. She held no degrees, commanded no armies, represented no nation. But 3 months earlier, she'd won a global essay competition with a piece titled "What We Owe the Future." In it, she'd argued that every generation inherits debts from the past and passes debts to the future, and that acknowledging these obligations was the only path to wisdom. The committee selecting Earth's representatives saw a strange appropriateness in including her voice. She accepted with a calmness that unsettled her parents. "Someone has to speak for people who aren't in rooms where decisions get made," she told them. "That's always been true. This time, the room just happens to be on a spaceship." The delegation of 12 arrived at the coordinates in the Arctic Ocean via military transport. Where there had been only ice and frigid water, a platform now floated, not mechanical, but grown, like a tree or coral, its surface warm to the touch despite the sub-zero temperatures. Above it, the architect's ship had descended from orbit, close enough now to block out a portion of the sky. Elena was part of the delegation, chosen for her expertise in astrobiology and her role in first detecting the signal. Standing on the platform, she felt the weight of every human eye watching through cameras. The live feed was being broadcast to every device on Earth. 7 billion people waiting. A door appeared in the ship's hull, not opening, but simply ceasing to be solid. From it descended 3 figures. The architects were beautiful in a way that hurt to perceive. Humanoid in basic structure, but clearly evolved or designed for something beyond terrestrial existence. Their skin held the depth of deep space, speckled with points of light like constellations. Their eyes reflected colors that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human vision could fully process. They moved with fluid grace, each gesture economical, purposeful. The tallest stepped forward. When it spoke, its words bypassed the delegation's ears entirely, manifesting directly in their minds in whatever language each person thought in. "I am Keeper Zhen. We greet the inheritors of Earth." The delegation's appointed speaker, Ambassador Katherine Okonkwo of the African Union, found her voice. We greet the architects. We acknowledge receipt of your message. Humanity wishes to understand the nature of this debt you claim we owe. Understanding is why we have come in person, rather than simply taking what is owed, Zhen replied. The stellar accord permits both approaches. We chose dialogue out of respect for what you have become. Another architect stepped forward, smaller, its constellation skin pulsing with what might have been emotion. "Allow me to show you what was given," Liss answered. Liss raised one hand, and the air above the platform shimmered. Images formed, not holograms, but something more immediate, as if memory itself had been made visible. The delegation watched as prehistoric Earth materialized before them, a world of savage beauty. Early humans, barely different from other primates, cowered in caves, lived short and brutal lives. Then the architects arrived. In the vision, they walked among humanity's ancestors, patient as teachers with children. They demonstrated how to shape stone into tools, how to create fire through friction, how to preserve food and treat wounds. They showed early humans the movement of stars and how to track seasons. They introduced the concept of zero, the foundation of all mathematics. "We spent 300 years among you," Keeper Zhen's voice resonated. "Entire generations of your species grew up under our guidance. We coded knowledge into your oral traditions, carved star maps into your monuments, left traces in your genetic memory.
When we departed, you had agriculture, writing, basic medicine, and astronomy. You had the foundation for civilization. The vision faded. Elena felt tears on her cheeks, though she couldn't say if they were from wonder or dread. "Why?" Amara spoke up, her young voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Why help us at all if you expected payment?" The architects turned their attention to her, and Elena saw the girl flinch slightly under the weight of their regard. "Because we were helped," Liz answered. 2 million years ago, our species was little more than aquatic scavengers on a toxic world. The priors came to us, lifted us up, gave us the stars. When we asked why, they told us because they were helped by the ancients before them. This is the chain of inheritance that spans the galaxy. No species ascends alone. "Then the debt is paid forward," Amara said, her voice stronger now. "We help the next species. We continue the chain." "Eventually, yes, but first comes the reckoning. The priors collected from us. We now collect from you. This is the balance, the price of knowledge. You have had 10,000 years to grow, to prosper, to spread across your world. That growth was built on our foundation. Half of what you have become belongs to us." The word "hath" echoed across the platform, transmitted to billions of watching humans. Ambassador Okonkwo's face hardened. "Half of what exactly?" "We will discuss terms, but understand, the debt will be paid. The only question is whether payment comes through cooperation or extraction."
The United Nations building in New York had never seen such tension. Representatives from every nation crowded into the General Assembly, while outside, protesters filled the streets, some demanding defiance, others urging appeasement. The architects had given humanity 1 week to present a proposal for payment. 4 days remained. Elena sat in a conference room with a task force of economists, historians, and ethicists, trying to calculate the incalculable. How do you measure the value of fire? What price tag belongs on agriculture, on writing, on the concept of zero? "If we accept their premise, they own half of everything we've built," argued Dr. James Chen, an economist from Beijing. "That's not just wealth or resources. That's half of all human achievement, all infrastructure, all knowledge. It's an impossible debt." "Maybe that's the point," countered Professor Maria Santos, a philosopher from Sao Paulo. "Maybe they're testing whether we'll reject an unjust framework entirely." Raj Malhotra had been invited to join the discussions after his research into ancient texts proved valuable. Now he spoke quietly from the corner of the room. "In every ancient tradition I've studied, there's a concept of cosmic debt. Rta in Sanskrit, Maat in Egyptian, Dao in Chinese. Balance must be maintained. But these traditions also speak of debts that can be transformed, obligations that can be fulfilled in unexpected ways." "Are you suggesting we try to bargain?" Elena asked. "I'm suggesting we try to understand what they actually want. They said half of what we've become, not half our resources or territory. What we've become. That's broader, maybe deeper." Amara, who'd been quiet through most of the meeting, suddenly sat forward. "What if it's not about taking at all? What if it's about testing?" The adults turned to her. Ambassador Okonkwo, who'd taken a mentoring interest in the girl since the Arctic meeting, nodded encouragingly. "Explain." "What if, and when we are part of something bigger than ourselves?" Dr. Chen shook his head. "That's optimistic, but they were very clear about collection, about debt.
"Which we've been interpreting in human terms," Amara interrupted, then blushed at her boldness. "Sorry, but we're thinking like humans. Money, resources, land. What if the architects think differently? What if their idea of payment is completely alien to us?" The room fell silent. Finally, Elena spoke. "There's only one way to find out. We need to ask them directly what form of payment they'll accept." The architects had established a temporary embassy, if it could be called that, in the ship still hovering over the Arctic. The delegation returned, this time with a proposal. Before offering payment, they needed to understand what the architects actually wanted. Keeper Jen received them in a chamber that seemed to exist in multiple spaces simultaneously. Looking in one direction, you saw the Arctic ice, in another, deep space, in another, what might have been the architect's homeworld, a planet of bioluminescent oceans and floating cities. "You wish to know what we value," Zen said. "A reasonable question. Very well, we will show you." The chamber shifted. Suddenly, the delegation stood, or seems to stand, in a vast library, though calling it that was inadequate. It was a repository of experience, every surface holding not books, but crystallized moments, memories made tangible. "This is the Archive of Ascension," Liss explained. "It contains the recorded journey of every species the architects have uplifted, including yours." Elena approached the nearest crystal surface. In it, she saw a human face, ancient, weathered, eyes full of wonder. A moment from 10,000 years ago, preserved perfectly. A memory of the first time one of her ancestors understood that the points of light in the sky were distant suns. "We collect moments of transformation, the instant when ignorance becomes knowledge, when fear becomes curiosity, when a species takes its first step toward becoming more than it was. These moments are precious beyond any physical resource. They are the currency of growth itself." "You want to take our memories?" Ambassador Okonkwo's voice was tight. "We want to preserve them," Liss corrected. "Half of humanity's transformative moments, its great discoveries, its paradigm shifts, its evolutionary leaps. These belong to the archive. They will be extracted carefully, preserved eternally, and shared with other species who follow the same path you are walking." "Extracted from where?" Elena asked, although she already feared the answer. "From those who experienced them," Zen replied. "From the minds of your inventors, your artists, your philosophers. From anyone who has experienced a genuine moment of transcendent understanding. The process is painless, but the memories will no longer fully belong to them. They will become property of the archive, accessible to all species in the stellar accord." The implications crashed over the delegation like a wave. They were talking about stealing the most profound moments of human consciousness. Einstein's revelation about relativity, Marie Curie's first isolated sample of radium, every musician's first perfect composition, every mathematician's elegant proof, every artist's moment of inspiration, not the knowledge itself, but the experience of discovering it. "That's not half of what we are," Amara said, her voice trembling. "That's the best of what we are. You're asking us to give up the very moments that make us human." "We are asking you to contribute to the cosmic inheritance. Correspondingly, just as the moments extracted from us now guide younger species, this is the price of the foundation we gave you. The stellar accord has sustained galactic civilization for 3 billion years by ensuring that breakthrough moments are never lost, never forgotten, always accessible to those who need them. And if we refuse? Ambassador Okonkwo asked. Keeper Jen's constellation skin dimmed slightly. Then we will take what is owed by force. The extraction will be less precise. Many may lose more than the required memories. Some may lose all capacity for such moments in the future. We prefer cooperation, but the debt must be paid.
Back on Earth, the revelation triggered the largest crisis in human history. When the full scope of what the architects wanted became public, society fractured along 1,000 different lines. Some argued for immediate surrender. They gave us civilization, these voices said. Without them, we'd still be in caves. Whatever they ask, we owe them. Others called for resistance. They're trying to steal our souls, they countered. Memory makes us who we are. We'd rather die free than live as hollowed-out shells. Religious communities struggled with theological implications. Had the architects been the gods their ancestors worshipped? Did humanity have a divine obligation to repay its creators? Or was this a test of free will? Scientists frantically searched for alternatives. Could they simulate the required memories? Create artificial moments of breakthrough? The architects quickly dismissed such attempts. We can distinguish authentic transformation from fabrication, Keeper Liss informed them. The archive contains only genuine experience. That is its value. Elena found herself unable to sleep. She thought about her own career, the moments that had defined her, the first time she truly understood that she was looking at light from stars that might no longer exist. The night she detected the architect's signal and realized humanity wasn't alone. If those moments were taken, who would she become? Would she still be herself? She visited Raj in his hotel room, finding him surrounded by open texts, searching ancient wisdom for modern answers. In the Bhagavad Gita, he said without looking up, Arjuna faces an impossible choice on the battlefield. Krishna tells him that action itself creates karma, debt. But there's also the concept of dharma, right action regardless of consequence. What was Arjuna's choice? Elena asked. He fought, he said, but he fought without attachment to the outcome. He did his duty because it was right, not because he expected to win or lose. I'm not sure how that helps us. Raj finally looked at her. Maybe it doesn't. Or maybe it means we shouldn't make this choice based on fear of the consequences. We should make it based on what we believe is right. The question was, what was right? Amara became an unexpected voice in the global debate. Her youth and directness resonated with billions watching her interviews. When a journalist asked if she thought humanity should pay the debt, she answered carefully. I think we need to ask a different question, not whether we should pay, but who decides what payment looks like. The architects are treating this like a transaction between a creditor and a debtor. But societies aren't bank accounts. We're people, and people have the right to negotiate their own obligations. Her words sparked something. Across the world, grassroots movements began forming, united by a simple principle. Earth's response should be determined by all of humanity, not just its leaders. Referendums were hastily organized. Digital platforms were created for mass deliberation. It was chaotic, messy, frequently contradictory, quintessentially human. The architects watched with apparent fascination. Your species' tendency toward collective decision-making is unusual, Keeper Liss admitted during one exchange.
Most civilizations at your stage have clear hierarchies. You seem to prefer argument. We prefer having a say in our own future, Ambassador Okonkwo replied. As the deadline approached, 3 main proposals emerged from the global deliberations. Proposal 1, full payment. Identify humanity's greatest living minds and extract their transformative moments as requested. Approximately 3.7 billion people had been identified as having experienced significant breakthrough moments in their lives. Half, 1.85 billion, would need to contribute to the archive. Proposal 2, partial payment with compensation. Offer a smaller pool of memories in exchange for additional knowledge from the architects. Turn the transaction into a trade rather than a debt collection. Proposal 3, alternative payment. Reject the architect's terms entirely and offer something different, full access to humanity's art, music, and creative expression. Argue that cultural richness represents what humanity has become just as much as scientific breakthroughs. Each proposal had passionate supporters and fierce critics. The UN scheduled a final vote. With 48 hours remaining before the architect's deadline, humanity would decide its response. Elena voted for Proposal 2. Raj voted for Proposal 3. Amara, when asked, said she hadn't decided. She said, "I want to hear what they all have to say first." That's the point, isn't it? Actually listening before choosing. On the final night before the vote, riots broke out in 17 major cities, not because people were angry at the architects, but because they were angry at each other. Every proposal felt like betrayal to someone. Families split, friendships shattered. The weight of the decision was tearing humanity apart.
Elena stood on the balcony of her hotel room, looking up at the architect's ship, visible as a constellation-bright object moving across the night sky. Beside her, Amara had appeared silently, unable to sleep. "Dr. Vasquez," the girl said quietly, "do you think they knew this would happen? That giving us a choice would make us turn on each other?" "Maybe," Elena admitted. "Or maybe they're learning that giving humans choices always leads to arguments. It's kind of our thing." "My grandfather used to say that the hardest part of being human is that we have to figure out what we owe each other," Amara said. "No one tells us. We just have to feel our way through it, mess up a lot, try again." "Sounds wise." "He was. He died when I was 12. Amara was quiet for a moment. "If the architects take my memories of him, the transformative ones, the moments when he taught me something that changed how I saw the world, will I still love him the same way?" Elena had no answer. She suspected no one did. The vote was held. Of Earth's 7.3 billion adults, 6.8 billion participated, the highest voter turnout in human history. The results were extraordinarily close. Proposal 1, 29%. Proposal 2, 34%. Proposal 3, 35%. Abstain, 2%. Proposal 3 had won by the narrowest of margins. Humanity would offer its cultural heritage in place of individual memories. Every piece of art, every musical composition, every story and poem and dance, the full spectrum of human creative expression, digitized and presented to the archive as representing what humanity had become. Ambassador Okonkwo delivered the decision to the architects personally. Keeper Zhen and Keeper Liss listened without interruption. When she finished, a long silence followed. Finally, Keeper Liss spoke. "This is unexpected." "Is it acceptable?" Okonkwo asked, her voice steady despite the tension. "We must consult the archive. This has never been proposed before." For the first time since their arrival,
The architects seemed uncertain.
The architects withdrew into their ship for 3 days. During that time, Earth existed in a state of collective suspension. Some celebrated the vote's outcome, others prepared for the worst. Military forces mobilized, despite knowing they were useless against technology that could fold space. Religious groups held prayer vigils. Scientists continued their useless search for defensive measures. Elena spent those days in the observatory, seeking comfort in the familiar routine of watching the stars. Amara visited often, finding solace in Elena's quiet presence. They didn't talk much. Sometimes the absence of answers was more honest than false reassurance. On the 3rd day, the architect's ship descended once again over the Arctic. The delegation returned to the platform, now joined by cultural representatives from every inhabited continent: artists, musicians, storytellers, archivists. They brought with them a crystalline data structure containing humanity's entire creative output. Millions of songs, billions of images, trillions of written works. Everything from cave paintings to digital art, from ancient epics to this morning's poems. The architects emerged, but this time they were not alone. With them came a 4th figure, taller than the others, its constellation skin blazing with intense luminosity. Its presence felt different, older, heavier with authority. "I am Keeper Thale," the new architect announced, its mental voice resonating with harmonics that made the delegation's bones ache. "We speak for the archive itself. We have reviewed your proposal." The world held its breath. "Your offer is insufficient," Keeper Thale declared. Gasps rippled through the delegation. On Earth, watching billions felt hope crumble. "However," Thale continued, "it is also profound." The Keeper gestured, and the data structure humanity had brought began to glow, its contents flowing outward, materializing as ghostly images in the air. A Paleolithic handprint on a cave wall, a Sumerian clay tablet, the Sistine Chapel, a Beethoven symphony made visible as waves of light, a child's crayon drawing, a grandmother's recipe, a love letter written in a trench during war. "In 10,000 years, you have created more cultural expressions than most species generate in a million. Your art is excessive, redundant, inefficient. You create beauty for no practical purpose, stories that serve no survival function, music that produces no material benefit." Elena felt her heart sinking. "This makes no sense to us," Keeper Thale continued. "We have consulted the archive. No other species has produced culture at this scale. Even the priors who uplifted us, who are 3 billion years old, have created less art than you have in 10 millennia. The Keeper paused, and for the first time, Elena thought she could detect something like emotion in an architect's voice. "It is extraordinary," Keeper Thale said, "and it changes our assessment." The Keeper turned to address not just the delegation, but all of humanity through the cameras broadcasting this moment. "The Stellar Accord was established on the principle that knowledge is the galaxy's most precious resource. Scientific breakthrough, technological advancement, philosophical insight, these are what we believed defined a species' ascension. But your proposal has forced the archive to confront a question we have not asked in 3 billion years. What if we were wrong about what matters?" Keeper Liss stepped forward, its voice softer. "We gave you fire and mathematics, but you used those tools to create things we never imagined. You painted on cave walls before you invented the wheel.
You composed music before you developed writing. Your species invests enormous resources in creating beauty that serves no survival purpose. This is alien to us. We thought we gave you civilization, Keeper Zen added. Perhaps instead we gave you the tools and you built something entirely your own, something we couldn't have predicted. Keeper Thale raised one hand, and the ghostly images of human art swirled together, forming a sphere of pure creative expression. The archive accepts your payment, Keeper Elder declared, not because it equals what you owe, but because it represents something the archive has never contained. Proof that a species can ascend not through pure logic, but through beauty. This is a form of transformation we did not know was possible. Relief crashed over the delegation. On Earth, celebration erupted in the streets. But Keeper Thale wasn't finished. However, Keeper the Elder said, accepting this payment creates a new problem. Your culture is living, constantly evolving. These works you have given us are already becoming historical records. The art you create tomorrow is not included in today's payment. The celebration faltered. Ambassador Okonkwo stepped forward. What are you saying? I am saying the debt cannot be closed, Keeper Thale replied. Traditional payment is finite. We extract memories and depart. But culture is infinite. To truly pay this debt, you would need to give us your culture forever. Every new song, every new story, every new expression of what you are becoming. And this, the Keeper paused, and Elena could have sworn she saw uncertainty in its ancient eyes. This would be extraction by another name, Keeper Thale finished. It would turn us from creditors into parasites. The archive does not wish to become a weight that suppresses the very creativity it has come to value.
Silence fell over the platform. On Earth, billions of people tried to process what they were hearing. The architects had accepted humanity's payment, but found themselves trapped by the implications. Amara spoke up, her young voice cutting through the confusion. Then maybe the debt was never meant to be paid all at once. Maybe it's like a relationship. You don't pay someone back for being your friend. You just keep being their friend. You keep sharing. The architects turned to her, and Keeper Thale descended from its elevated position to stand at the girl's level. Explain. The stellar accord treats knowledge like property, Amara said, speaking faster now, ideas tumbling out. One species gives, another receives. Debt is created and paid. But that's not how culture works. Culture is shared, not traded. It grows when it's passed around, not locked away. She looked at the sphere of human art still floating in the air. What if, instead of payment, this is the start of exchange? You gave us fire and math. We give you art and music, not as debt repayment, but as continuation, as partnership. Keeper List tilted its head, an almost human gesture. You propose transforming a debt into an alliance. I propose recognizing that we've been partners all along. You didn't just give us tools and leave. You coded knowledge into our myths, our stories, our memories. You made yourselves part of our culture. Maybe that was always supposed to be a two-way street. The architects conferred silently, their constellation skins pulsing in synchronized patterns. Finally, Keeper Thale spoke. The archive has never considered this framework. The stellar accord has always been transactional, debt and payment, extraction and balance. But perhaps this rigidity is why we have never encountered a species like yours before.
Perhaps we have been collecting breakthrough moments without understanding that breakthroughs are not isolated events, but parts of larger patterns. Keeper Zhen added, "Your art shows us something we had forgotten in 3 billion years, that wisdom without wonder becomes sterile, that knowledge without beauty loses meaning, that advancement without joy is not advancement." "We have a proposal," Keeper Thale said. "Not a payment, but an amendment to the Stellar Accord itself. Earth will become the first species to enter the galactic community not as debtors repaying ancient obligations, but as cultural partners. You will continue creating your excessive, illogical, beautiful art. We will collect it, preserve it, share it with other species. In exchange, we will open the archive to you. Not just the knowledge, but the memories, the experiences, the breakthrough moments of 3 billion years of galactic civilization." "You would share the entire archive?" Elena asked, stunned. "All of it?" "Cultural partnership requires equal exchange. You give us your endless creativity, we give you our accumulated wisdom. Both species benefit. Both species grow." Raj laughed suddenly, a sound of pure relief and wonder. "The debt isn't paid by taking, it's paid by continuing to give, both ways, forever." "Precisely, though we would not call it payment, we would call it kinship." The delegation looked at each other. Ambassador Okonkwo spoke carefully. "This decision isn't ours to make alone. We need to consult with Earth." "Of course," Keeper Zhen agreed. "We have learned that your species prefers collective choice. We will wait." This time the global deliberation took only hours. The proposal was simpler, clearer, less existentially threatening than extraction of memories. When the vote came, it was overwhelming. 94% in favor, 3% opposed, 3% abstaining. Humanity had spoken. We would join the galactic community not as debtors repaying ancient obligations, but as partners sharing in an endless exchange. The formal ceremony took place 1 week later, broadcast across human networks, and for the first time across the Stellar Accord's communication channels. Species from across the galaxy watched as Earth signed the amended accord, the first species in 3 billion years to do so as equals rather than debtors. Keeper Thale presided over the ceremony. "Let it be recorded in the archive. On this day, humanity joined the galactic community by teaching the architect something we had forgotten, that civilization is not merely the accumulation of knowledge, but the creation of meaning, that the purpose of ascending is not to escape what we were, but to better express it." Elena watched as the crystalline data structure containing human culture merged with the archive, its contents flowing into a repository that spanned galaxies. Simultaneously, knowledge began flowing back. Mathematical principles from the priors, philosophical frameworks from species whose names humanity couldn't yet pronounce, artistic traditions from civilizations millions of years old. But more than information came through. Elena felt it, a sudden expansion of awareness, as if her mind had been given access to a library she'd never known existed. Not invasive, not overwhelming, but available, waiting to be explored. Beside her, Amara gasped. Raj wept. Across Earth, billions of humans experienced the same moment, the realization that they were no longer alone in the universe, no longer isolated in their corner of space. They were part of something vast, ancient, and ongoing. The ceremony concluded. The architects prepared to depart, though Keeper Liss explained they would return regularly to exchange new cultural works and archive access. Partnership requires presence. We will not be strangers anymore. As the ship began to rise, Elena felt a presence in her mind, not invasive but gentle, like someone tapping on a door. "Dr. Vasquez, a moment if you would permit." "Of course. You were the first to detect our arrival. Your breakthrough moment, the instant you realized we were coming, is preserved in the archive. Under our previous framework, we would have extracted it, made it property of the collective. Now, under partnership, it remains yours, but it is also available to others with your permission." Elena considered this. That moment in the observatory, the pattern in the cosmic noise resolving into intention, the sudden overwhelming knowledge that humanity wasn't alone in the universe had defined her life. Could she share it? "Yes," she said finally. "If it helps someone else experience that wonder, that terror, that absolute transformation of their understanding of the universe, yes, share it. Your generosity honors the new accord, and Dr. Vasquez, thank you for your openness, for your species' remarkable choice, for teaching ancient beings that we still have much to learn." The architect's ship vanished, not into space, but into whatever dimension they'd emerged from. Earth was left changed forever, not conquered or depleted, but enriched, connected. 5 years later, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the newly constructed Exchange Center in Geneva, half human architecture, half architect design, a building that seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously. Today marked the center's official opening, where humans and representatives from 12 different species would gather to share knowledge and culture. The past 5 years had transformed Earth.